Most of us watch television, and there's a lot to watch. News, sports, science, nature, game shows, something for everyone. The most popular types of programme in Britain are game shows and drama. Drama is very expensive. Some programmes cost over £500,000 per hour to make. It takes a lot of time to film each scene, especially when there is a lot of action or dangerous stunts. I'm glad I'm not a stunt artist. Now, probably the most popular type of drama is the soap opera, or soaps as they're usually called. I'm on location at one of the most famous soaps. It's called Hollyoaks.
Okay, hold on a second, so I can just rear up.
Set.
Camera set, and action!
It's shown 3 times a week at 6:30 and it's watched by 4 million people. Hollyoaks is set in northwest England, and each episode is filled with the usual ingredients of a soap: drama and romance.
We can work it out, I promise, alright? I love you.
Yes, you deserve that!
Come on, mate, we can sort this.
Yeah, I sorted it.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop this! It won't do any good! Are you? Who do you think you're pushing?
Ashley, why do you think Hollyoaks is so popular?
Because it's aimed at a whole variety. It's like you've got the parents, the children, teenagers, and everyone can watch it and you relate to it.
Let's go for a take on this now, please. Which one?
He's a little bit surly with his stacking, but he gets the job done.
I think teenagers can, in a way, think it's like their programme. It deals with issues. It's like when teenagers, you go through problems and you come home and you sit down and you watch the television and you watch programmes like Hollyoaks, your problems get put into perspective.
What are you playing at?
I'm just waiting for you outside.
You promised you'd stay. I only came because of you. I can't do this without you.
Hollyoaks is watched mainly by people aged between 15 and 25. What do they like about it?
It's light entertainment. It's people around my age. It's things that you can kind of relate to from your teenage years and you think, oh my God, I did that, or, you know, oh, that's really sad. I think it's definitely a bit of escapism and a bit of realism.
What's happened?
Nothing's happened.
So what are you doing here?
I need to talk to you, alright?
You could have spoken to me before I left.
No.
I have to take time out because life tends to get so busy that I have to take time out to do nothing. I just have to think, right, I'm going home, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to put my feet up, I'm going to watch the television and do nothing.
People can get away from their lives as well. They can come home and sit down and watch a programme and just watch somebody else's life and learn from them how to react to problems or how to react to other people.
Most people think of sport as a form of relaxation, but what about dangerous sports? In the past few years, dangerous sports have become more and more popular. Bungee jumping, rock climbing, rafting, and many others. Today, we're going to meet 2 people who do one of the most dangerous and exciting sports in the world. They go up in an aeroplane. They jump out of the aeroplane and they surf in the sky. Tim and Chris are sky surfers. So what can they tell us about their sport?
Sky surfing is a relatively new sport. It only started 10 years ago. It started by people experimenting, first of all, with small surfboards. And then it evolved into them standing up on top of surfboards.
With sky surfing, we're standing up in the sky on our surfboards. We can do front loops, back loops, spins, this direction, that direction. We've got complete freedom up there.
It is a minority sport. Worldwide, there's probably only a couple of hundred sky surfers.
Sky surfers always go in pairs. One of them does the surfing and is filmed by the other one. Tim and Chris use a small video camera. The camera is attached to the head of the person who is doing the filming. Tim and Chris are taken up to about 4,000 metres. They then jump out together. The person doing the filming has to follow the person doing the surfing. And if the camera operator gets too close, he will get hit by the board.
With sky surfing, we ride on an airwave. The pressure of the air is similar to being on snow or on the water. It's actually the resistance gives us our flying control.
Sky surfing is a mixture between snowboarding and aerial gymnastics. When you're falling out of the aeroplane, you have over a minute where you can perform lots of dizzy type moves, and you're falling at speeds of up to 300 kilometers an hour. So you can either have a very tame skydive where you don't do too much, or you can spin at very fast speeds and zoom across the sky. Interact with your camera flyer where both of you do moves together. So it's really exciting.
Chris, is sky surfing dangerous?
Sky surfing can be dangerous and accidents do happen from time to time, but with adequate training and good preparation they can be reduced.
Have you had any accidents or near misses?
A few years ago in Florida, when I was skydiving, I jumped out of the aeroplane from the wrong place and I landed on power lines and got quite badly burnt. But I managed to recover a year later, and then I started jumping again.
There are two types of people, human beings and human doings. I'd rather be a human doing rather than a spectator in life. I'd like to be up there sky surfing.
This is the Brick Lane Street Festival, which takes place every year in September. Brick Lane is a street in London, and many people from families who came to Britain from India and other countries nearby live in this area. Music is a very important part of Indian culture, and there are many different musical traditions. And today, I'm going to meet two sisters who came to Britain from India a few years ago. They're singers, they're dancers, they're musicians. They've got a band called Spellbound, And their music, well, it isn't traditional at all. Hiya.
Hi.
So you're Menaka and you're Sheena?
Right.
Menaka, when did you come to Britain?
About 7 years ago, we came first to Britain, and we were two crazy teenage girls full of the zest of life and love and passion for music.
And why did you move to London?
We first came to Swindon because the friends who sponsored us lived in Swindon, but we lived there only for 6 months because we really actually wanted to move to London because everything, the music was here.
Do you find life in Britain very different from life in India?
It is very, very different. We don't come from Delhi or Bombay. We are from Allahabad, which is in the heart of North India, which is very traditional, very sort of compared to Delhi and Bombay, not much happens there.
Do you go back to India?
Yeah, we do. It's our home and we love it, and we go every year to visit our family and friends.
And what do you love about London?
What we like about London is the freedom to do what we want to do. It's a different world from where we come from, and what is in India is not here. And here is where our dream is, and so we like it here. And we don't have to be home at 8 o'clock. Exactly.
Sheena, did you always want to be musicians?
No, I don't think we knew what we wanted to be, although we came from a musical family, and Mum played the organ in the church and Dad was writing in Indian classical music. I think they wanted us to be lawyers or doctors and, go into the profession rather than become musicians.
Have you done anything apart from music?
Well, we have enjoyed acting. I've done a lot of television serials in England and a couple in India, done films, musicals.
And which do you prefer, acting or singing?
Both are very exciting, but music I'm myself, this is me. But with acting, what I find interesting is that I get to be so many different people. I can hide behind different characters and different masks, and that's the exciting thing. So they're both different, but both very, very challenging. I'm going
So tell me, what are your hopes for the future?
Well, at the moment we are preparing for some shows which we're going to be doing and some TV interviews, and then we are also working on our single, which is hopefully going to come out in a couple of months' time, and next year we're going to be doing our album and hopefully going to the States to do more shows and obviously to be big.
Yeah. And what do you like about being professional musicians?
I think the main thing is that we get to be taken a bit more seriously, and the opportunity to work and be able to make a record, to perform, to be doing interviews like these, to reach out with our music. Our music is very global.
Today, Sheena and Menaka are going to record a new song. It's their new single and it's called Higher.
A major. Yep.
Well, our music is a mixture of a lot of influences that we actually grew up with as kids, listening to music, rock, jazz, pop, even church music, and also from our father's side, a lot of classical Indian music. Some of it is dance music. There's something that you've got great rhythms, beats that you can't, you have to get up and dance to those songs. You just can't sit. And some are more sort of you listen to, when you're sort of sitting around and relaxing.
What we write it just comes from within us, and when the song is completed, there will be certain places which will be quite Eastern, and I think that's quite good because you cannot place that, okay, this is pure Indian or pure Western or pure this. It is a sound which is a universal sound.
I'm telling you, baby, I'm staring at your face. Don't try and look away now. Ooh, just stand up straight.
Our new single is called Higher, which is a great dance track, and Sheenu wrote it.
I was feeling sad, and I was upset, and I sat down and I thought of these words. You can't get to me, I'm going higher. It made me feel good.
Get to me, you can't get to me.
This is Andrew. He's Spellbound's manager and producer. What's it like being a manager and producer?
Well, my job as manager is it's a variety of things. Everything from running out and getting them a Mars bar, if they need one, to arranging shows, making sure they get there, making sure the shows are correctly prepared and arranged, promoted, that sort of thing. The production side of things is much more involved with the music. So instead of the technical things, getting them to places, the production is more about recording, getting in musicians, arranging producers, in my case co-writing some of their songs with them, suggesting ideas, taking their ideas and developing them. Recently we've seen quite dramatic changes in the way the music industry is going. We're going to see a change in the way that people purchase music or CDs. You're still going to a shop and buy a CD, but at the same time you can log on to the internet to a website of a particular artist and you can download their music. For example, Spellbound have got their own website, and every day around the world thousands of kids log on. And it's a great way of finding out about the girls, looking at photos, hearing music.
I'm going
Staying fit and healthy is very important for all of us, but what happens if you get ill? Well, you can go to the chemist, or if it's serious, you can go to the doctors. But in the past few years, complementary therapies have been getting more and more popular. This is the Hale Clinic. It's probably the most famous clinic in London for complementary therapy. This is Teresa Hale. She's been running the Hale Clinic since 1987. Why does she think complementary therapy has become so popular?
The main reason why it's become so popular is that patients have been going to visit their medical doctor and have not always got the results they wanted. Another important factor is people have become much more aware about the side effects of drugs. Another factor is I think our lives have become very, very stressful, and people don't want to just take some drug to calm them down. They're really looking for something that's much more natural, and they've decided to often look at complementary medicine and use it as an alternative.
So, what sort of therapies can you get at the Hale Clinic? Well, there are over 40 of them. Some of them are very old. For example, Mama massage, which doctors in India have been using for over 5,000 years. Some of them are very modern. For example, alpha pulse therapy. It uses a magnet and the natural electrical signals of the body to help it repair itself after injury. This is Peter. He's a BICOM resonance therapist. So Peter, what exactly is BICOM resonance therapy?
Well, the first thing to understand is that the body produces electrical frequencies. And there is a different electrical frequency in different parts of the body. There's a different frequency in the liver, and a different frequency in the heart, and the brain, and so forth. With the BICOM, we can pick up these frequencies, receive them, a bit like a radio. When a body is healthy, the frequencies are different to when the body is unwell or diseased. So for example, if I had a patient who had one good kidney and one bad kidney, I'd put one on the good kidney and pick up the healthy frequencies, put it through the BICOM, so the frequencies come down the wire into the BICOM, which then strengthens them, increases them, and then plays them back onto the bad kidney. This helps the bad kidney to heal itself.
So what sort of illnesses can BICOM treat?
Well, it can treat a wide range of illnesses, like most of the holistic medicines and alternative medicines. But for example, one thing it's particularly good at is treating allergies.
Many people are allergic to food additives. What about me? Peter decided to find out. To find out if you're allergic to something, he sends an electrical signal through your body. He measures the signal at an acupuncture point in your hand. He then adds a small quantity of the food additive to the electrical circuit. If there is a big difference between the two signals, then he knows that you are probably allergic to this additive.
And you can hear that that sounds quite different. When I take it off, it's much lower. The BICOM is using modern technology, but in a very, what we call holistic way, or very natural way. It actually uses the ancient Chinese medicine, the acupuncture meridians. It uses these meridians and these energy systems, or energy pathways, to treat you.
This is Samir. He's an acupuncturist. Samir, can you tell me a little bit about acupuncture?
Yes, of course. Acupuncture is part of Chinese medicine, which is the oldest system of thoughts and practice. Of course, originated in China. It has been around for over 3,000 or 4,000 years. Chinese medicine includes acupuncture, herbal medicine, diet, but most important part of all is lifestyle.
Samir, can I tell you about a problem I've been having?
Yes, what is it?
I've been having some pain in my shoulder and it's a bit stiff.
What makes it better or worse?
Maybe sleep.
Do you usually carry any heavy weight?
My bag.
You carry your bag, yes.
I also play tennis.
You play tennis?
As well.
Yes. All right, well, perhaps we can do something for it. No problem.
I don't know about you, but I've always been a bit scared of needles. So I was feeling nervous. Samir put needles in my back, neck and ear. The one in my ear hurt a bit, but it seemed to work.
Okay, James. See how does it feel now? Move your neck.
Mm-hmm.
And to the left. Great. And your shoulder? How is it?
Much better.
Very good.
Now, you might think that what you've just seen was a piece of video taken by someone walking down a corridor holding a camera, but it wasn't a human being at all. It was a robot. Now, robots aren't new. They've been used in industry for many years. But scientists are working on new developments all the time, and some of the most exciting new developments are happening right here. This is the Computer Science Department at the University of York. This is Dr. Nick Pears. He's a computer scientist and an expert in robots. So Nick, what exactly is a robot?
Well, a robot's a device that's equipped with some sensors that can take in information about the robot's outside world, process that information, which allows the robot to do something useful in the real world. This particular robot has two main sensory systems. Around the rim here you can see a set of sensors. It uses the sound waves to work out where it is. On the top here is a video camera which works as the robot's eye. It takes in visual information from the outside world and processes that to work out where it is.
Some basic robots are already in use in everyday life. In this restaurant in London, for example, a robot goes around serving drinks. If someone gets in the way, the robot stops and lets them pass. Many of the robots in use now are not really robots. They're automated machines. They don't have proper sensors and they can't learn. But some of them are very sophisticated. This robotic dog, for example, which was built by Sony, is called Aibo. It can move around, it can use different parts of its body, and it can show emotions. For example, it wags its tail when it's happy. But is it really happy? And is this really an emotion? Nick's robot is called Arnold. Arnold sends information about what he sees and hears to Nick at his computer. Nick can then send information or instructions back to Arnold. Nick believes that in the future we will have robots at home and they will do many of the things people do now. For example, the washing up, the cleaning, the cooking and the shopping. Arnold can identify straight lines and moving objects. If he sees something in the way, he can stop or move around it. Eventually, Arnold will be able to recognise people and understand language. So Nick, looking ahead, do you think robots will make a big difference to our lives?
I think they'll make a big difference to our lives in a number of different areas. For example, in factories, we may have robots moving materials from one part of the factory to another without any human intervention. In hospitals, we might have robots performing operations. Another area would be something like exploration. We could send robots to different planets to explore their surfaces. And another area might be all kinds of dangerous situations where there may be fires or explosions. In those situations, it would make much more sense to send a robot in rather than risking a human's life.
And what about in the home?
I think robots will make a big difference to our day-to-day lives. They'll do basic tasks such as cleaning the house, do the shopping, do the cooking, work in the garden, and so on.
So eventually robots will be exactly the same as human beings?
Well, not exactly.
Oh, hello Arnold. Nick? Are you there? Nick, could I have a cup of tea? Please? Oh. Thanks, Arnold.
Human beings communicate in many different ways, but we take communication for granted. We don't think about how it works very often. Today, we're going to find out a bit more. This is LAMDA, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. LAMDA is one of the most famous drama schools in the world. They teach people to act, and of course to act well. You need to know how to communicate well. This is Christian.
Yeah?
She is an expert in communication.
Okay, arms by your side, feet together. You are watching your favourite football team, and their match is being shown on the screen in the cafe up here.
Movement is good up front. Ricardinho, and he scored! Ricardinho has broken the deadlock for Corinthians. Smartly taken. Oh, this is wonderful.
Exercises we do are non-verbal. When we communicate with each other, of course we use words, we use language, but we use much, much more than that. That's probably about 20% of communication. The other 80% is what we use with our bodies. And when I say bodies, that means facial expressions, hand gestures, the way we hold ourselves, whether it's forwards or backwards, how we come across to each other physically. Okay, so you're in an exam room, you're about to read the question and start answering the questions.
Communication is a two-way process. It's about the person who's speaking and the person who's listening. For example, if you have two friends speaking to each other and they're both interested, you'll notice that their body language is often very, very similar. Whereas if you have somebody who's not interested, often their body language will be quite different from the person who is trying to tell the story.
After they've practiced communicating using body language, Christian gets her students to add words and dialogue.
Can I see your ticket, please, sir? Oh, hello. Ticket, madam. Can I see your ticket, sir?
No, I don't have a ticket.
Can I see your ticket?
In this exercise, the students are pretending they're at a party.
People behave in a particular way. They hug each other or kiss each other. There's a special form, a way of behaving with each other.
I'll leave it to him.
When we look at people we don't know, we often make an instant judgment about that person, whether they look interested, whether they look bored, whether they look happy or unhappy. And they don't have to say anything. That's something we immediately understand from the way they hold themselves.
How are you doing? Fine. Claire? Gary, Claire. I'm Claire. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So, what do you do?
I've just been working here for a week. I'm sort of starting off. How long have you been working here?
Longer than you.
Oh, a long time then.
Yeah, quite a long time.
How to communicate well is very important for everyone, at school with friends, and of course at work. Take for example the job of a TV presenter. How do you talk? What do you wear? How do you present yourself? Today, Christian sent two of her students out on the street pretending to be television presenters. First, they wore smart clothes and pretended to be very professional. Then they wore rough clothes and pretended to be very unprofessional. What did they do and how did people react to them?
Excuse me, ma'am, can I ask you a quick... Hi, Simon, could you spare a minute?
Sorry, I'm German.
Thanks.
Hang on a sec. Oh, sorry.
More seriously.
Sorry.
Yeah.
1 second. If you just, oh, that's the wrong page. Sorry.
So it very much depends on other people's thoughts. Yeah.
Who's this for? Sorry. Right. Okay. Well, it's lovely speaking to you. Okay, but.
As you can see, being a TV presenter isn't always easy. And what about me? Am I getting my message across to you?
And I'll be talking to you about speech and communication and how to use your body and your voice most effectively to communicate a message.
This is Chris Malcolm. He works with business people and politicians, helping them to get their message across. Chris, what tips can you give me about getting my message across?
Well, that depends a lot on what your message is. If you're telling a joke to some friends, for instance, then you'll probably have a different way of speaking than if you were in an interview. If you're at a job interview, it's a very different situation. It's quite formal. You have to come across as being quite responsible and confident and competent at what you do.
So it depends on what your message is and who you're talking to.
That's right.
And what about language? What sort of language should you use?
Well, the type of language you use depends again on who you're speaking to. If you're in a casual setting, say with your friends or family, you don't really need to worry too much about your language. You can be fairly casual and you can use slang and you don't need to worry about grammar. But if you're speaking to a group of people in, let's say, a presentation or something, you want to make sure that your language is used properly, that you use correct grammar, that you don't use slang. You want to use a sort of a formal, proper English. You want to impress them.
And what about clothes?
Clothes are an important part of the message. You want to make sure that you dress appropriately for the situation. So if you're with young people and it's a fairly casual situation, then you can wear casual, comfortable clothes. But if you're speaking in a formal situation with adults, you want to give the right impression, you want to dress smartly.
So, to get your message across properly, you need to know what your message is and who your message is for.
That's right.
Right. Let's put it to the test. I'm going to pretend to be two very different types of politician, trying to persuade you to vote for me. You decide how well I do. I'm James Lance. Does it concern you that there isn't enough discipline in schools? Do you believe that young people spend too much time watching television and playing computer games? I do. I believe that the world is in crisis. I believe that we have lost sight of our traditional values. If you agree with me, then you should vote for me. Vote for tradition. Vote for Lance. Hi, I'm Jimmy. Fed up with people telling you what to do? Sick of a government which doesn't listen? Maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to get involved. That's what I want. How about you? If you're on my wavelength, then hey, I'm the guy for you. Vote for yourself. Vote for Jimmy.
Water, probably the most valuable thing on Earth. Did you know that 71% of our planet is covered by water? And did you know that 97% of the world's water is salt water? We call it planet Earth. Perhaps we should call it planet water. We use water for industry. We use it to clean things. And of course we use it for drinking. In some countries, like Africa, they get quite a lot of rain per year. But it doesn't fall regularly, and sometimes they don't get any for long periods of time. The consequences are disastrous. Crops won't grow, and people and animals die. Many people think of the United Kingdom as a very wet place, and in some areas it is. The average annual rainfall in the United Kingdom is about 1,000 millimetres, but here in the east of England there are only about 500 millimetres of rain per year. In fact, it's the second driest place in Europe. In 1 year they only had 236 millimetres of rainfall. If that happened over a period of years, Britain would be a desert. Pollution is also a problem. Many rivers and streams have been polluted by chemicals. So what's the solution? Well, dams have been placed on rivers and reservoirs like this have been built. This is Sarah Rowland. She works for Anglian Water.
Reservoirs are really important. If we hadn't built this reservoir, then during the hot, dry summers we would have had to have taken more water out of the rivers, and that would have had a bad impact on the environment. Pollution is a problem. For example, if pesticides have been sprayed on the land and it rains, and the pesticides make their way into the river, and the water company takes the water out of the river for treating for drinking water, all those pesticides have to be taken out.
This is Alan Whitfield. He also works for Anglian Water. Alan, how much water is in the reservoir?
The reservoir currently has approximately 8.1 million cubic metres of water there.
And is drought still a problem?
Yes, droughts are still a problem. It's actually been worked out that this part of the country has less annual rainfall than North Africa.
And what would have happened if the reservoir hadn't been built?
If the reservoir hadn't been built, there wouldn't have been enough water.
And how valuable is water?
Water is extremely valuable. You're looking at a source of life. We cannot live without it. Vegetation cannot live without it. Animals cannot live without it. The planet cannot survive without water. We have probably the same amount of water on this earth that we had when the earth was created. We need to conserve what we've got.
But there are disadvantages to building reservoirs. This valley has been flooded to make the reservoir, and there weren't just fields and trees here before. There was a village. All the people who lived here were moved out, and they now live elsewhere. So, water is vital for human survival, and sometimes we have to cause damage to property and the environment to get it. In the next part of the programme, we're going to find out what happens when you get too much water. Floods are one of the most dangerous of all natural disasters. They are caused by too much rain in a short period of time. Rivers overflow, houses are washed away, people are stranded. Heavy rain and floods are not the only danger. The force of the sea is just as dangerous. This is Dunwich on the coast of England. I'm now standing on the cliff top, but 50 years ago the cliff wasn't here. It was about 200 metres away. Since then the cliff has been eroded, and it's still being eroded today. This is the village of Dunwich today, but it's not the original village. Dunwich used to be a town. In fact, it used to be one of the biggest towns in the country. But the town of Dunwich used to be where the sea is now. The entire village fell into the waves, and since then all the buildings have been destroyed by the sea. The erosion of the cliffs at Dunwich has been caused by the impact of the sea and the shape of the beaches here. But there is another problem here in Eastern England. This area used to be almost covered by water. It's the flattest part of Britain. And like Holland, Bangladesh and the Florida Everglades, there is a danger of flooding from the sea. By draining the land, it was possible to plant crops. The soil is very fertile and a lot of Britain's crops are grown here. But what has happened since they drained the land? a lot of the indigenous wildlife has been destroyed. This is Wicken Fen, almost the last remaining area which hasn't been drained. This is Adrian. He works for English Nature. What happened when the fens were drained?
Well, over the last 400 years, over 99% of wild fens have been drained and all the wildlife's been lost as a result of that drainage. I think if the fens hadn't been drained, they'd be very similar to quite a lot of the big wetland areas you still get in Europe, for example, a bit like the Camargue and some of the big reedy areas in Poland and Hungary. Drainage of the fens has been very, very good for agriculture. These are very, very important areas for producing food for the nation. But of course there has been a cost, and that cost has been loss of wildlife. There's a conflict between the agricultural lands and the few remaining wild places left, because we're trying to keep things wet, everybody else is trying to drain it, and there's a conflict and potentially the wildlife can be lost. Well, flooding isn't a huge problem in the fens at the moment because the whole system is so well controlled. But of course, if sea levels continue to rise, well, in the future, it could be completely different and much more dangerous.
Action! Sorry, I can't remember what to say. What's the line? I can't remember my lines. Come on, James. Come on, James. Hold on. It's, Where are you going? No. Wait. Give me one more chance. I'll remember my lines. Dreams can be very frightening, but usually they're just strange or illogical.
I used to have recurring dreams when I was young. I used to have nightmares about wolves. I also used to have dreams where I would scream and nothing would come out. Or I'd try and run really fast and couldn't move, be standing still.
I used to have a lot of anxiety dreams. Not of falling off cliffs, like things like bridges falling away underneath me, drowning dreams.
If I'm about to have an exam, I usually have a dream. Like I had a driving test and I had a few dreams before that. And I failed, and then I had other dreams before the next driving test.
We used to have quite a small house, and there was a little dining room in between the kitchen and the living room. And I always remember I used to have a really horrible dream that just in one of the cupboards in the dining room there lived a witch, and every time I was trying to run between the kitchen and the living room, the witch would jump out and try to get a hold of me and pull me into the cupboard.
I think when events in my life do take place, sometimes I think, oh, haven't I gone through this before? You know, and then I begin to think maybe I did dream about it. So I probably have dreams, but I forget.
This is Nigel Hamilton. He's a psychotherapist and a dream expert. Nigel, does everyone dream?
Everyone dreams. So sometimes we dream dreams that could last for as long as half an hour. Sometimes we have dreams that can last just a brief moment.
And are there different types of dreams?
So there are three kinds of dreams. The first kind of dream is what I call a digestive dream, which helps you to digest the day's events. You simply dream about what happened during the day. The second type of dream is a symbolic dream, in which the mind is using images to show you what's going on in your inner life, what's going on in your life itself. and that you need to pay attention to. The third type of dream is a lucid dream, in which what you see is what you get. There's no interpretation, but you are very clear, and the images are very clear and very startling. We usually remember lucid dreams.
And why are some dreams so strange and illogical?
Yes, there are dreams that are very odd and strange, but sometimes human behavior is very strange and illogical, but we're not conscious of it, and that can be shown to us by our dreams.
Nigel, I dream quite a lot, but I always seem to forget my dreams. Why is that?
Well, if you don't take your dreams very seriously, you're less likely to remember them. The more interested you are in your dreams, the more likely you are to remember them.
Do people in different countries dream about different things?
The images might be different, but the themes are the same. In the Bushman culture from Africa, for example, the Bushmans take dreams very seriously. It's their principal source of guidance in life. In the Senoi dream culture, the Senoi people come from Indonesia, they have a very different way of interpreting dreams. For example, if I'm from the Senoi tribe, and I have a dream that last night you gave me £100, then the next day when I wake up, that's the first thing I do. I come to you and say, last night you gave me £100 in my dream, and then you would respond by giving me £100. There would be no argument. That is a common agreement amongst the people. I think dreams are a form of guidance. They're kind of a mirror to show us where we're going and what's happening. And also in that mirror there are hints about what we ought to pay attention to.
They reflect our fears in life and maybe our hopes, and yeah, I think they're really important.
No, I don't think dreams are important. Because sometimes I dream of things because of the way I've been feeling before I go to sleep.
I think some are significant, but I think dreams are ultimately a form of escapism, really, that we can't really control, so they're quite interesting. So I think it's chance whether they reflect real life or not. I think they can be completely surreal and bizarre and odd, or they could be really true to life.
This is Christina. She's an artist. Christina's from Greece, but she works here in Brighton in the south of England. Christina, what type of things do you paint?
Well, for the past couple of years I've been painting Brighton, the landscapes around here. Well, I moved here when I finished my degree, and it's always interested me. There's the seafront, the pier, the pavilion. It's a pretty unique place. I'll often leave the studio because I need a break and just walk through the town. And it's just the act of looking at people's faces and what they're wearing. I'll often walk down the lanes and see sort of people from all walks of life. And there's always a real cross-section of society.
So, Christina, what's it like being an artist?
Well, it's not an easy profession. It's certainly not a secure thing to be doing. You've got to work every day, and in order to maintain the same sort of quality of work. And then you just got to hope someone comes along and buys your paintings.
Is it hard to make a living?
It's not easy. Financially, it can be very difficult, but it's rewarding. The reward comes with the work that I do, and the pleasure I get from it.
So it is worth it.
Absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't do anything else.
There are many different forms of art. Conventional oil paintings, sculpture, and street art. Some modern art is very hard to understand. And some artists don't just use a brush to paint. Christina, why are you drawing me using a bamboo stick?
The whole idea is that that you don't have so much control which you would normally have. The famous French painter Matisse used it when he was in a wheelchair. You can dance with a stick. Everyone can be creative as long as they want to be. If they see something that grabs them, then there's no reason why they can't express that. Generally, the human beings are an expressive race. There are people who are more practical in other areas, such as, there might be people who are better at numbers, better at business, or better at writing, or better at driving a bus. Even that in itself requires a certain degree of imagination.
So you think we're all naturally creative?
Yeah, we're all creative. Everything we do, the way we dress, the way we kind of are, is totally creative.
There's an artist in everyone.